Today we're looking at some dynasty trades. We're looking at player values. We're looking at how they're valued now versus how they could be valued later. On top of that, looking at their production, the advanced analytics, and seeing how we can take advantage of that for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Before we dig in, though, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We do this every week. If there's players you want me to talk about for next week's video, let me know in the comments below. I'll dig up the stats. On top of that, we're looking at rookies. We're ranking rookies. I'm having mock drafts sent to me. I'm looking at those. We're looking at the rookies individually. We're looking at coach speak. We're looking at the interviews. And it's all right here on the daily. Click that button. Stop missing out. Garrett Wilson's our first player. And you think, well, he wasn't really impacted by the draft. But guess what's coming? OTAs, mini camp, everything's coming up. And the vets are still at play here. And we still need to look at those. We still need to look at them. Justin Fields at quarterback. They just opened up workouts, which is a primer before all the practices, all the camps. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 13, 15.1 points per game last year. It felt very quiet for that number, for that average. 3 wide receiver 1 weeks versus 4 wide receiver 2 weeks. I think that's the most valuable thing to look at there. Double digits, we're hitting that most of the time except for like 6 weeks out of the year if you count week 18. 9 targets a game. Throw all that out with the targets because now things are different. It could be more or less. So what do you think? Is Fields going to amp up Wilson and feed him, kind of like DJ Moore in Chicago? Or is this offense going to look like what it did in Pittsburgh? I want to hear your theory on that. 26% target share last year, 8 out of 7.9. That could change with Fields. That could change. It could go deeper. It could stay the same. The target share might be very high when you look at the depth chart here. But Garrett Wilson doesn't have Devontae Adams anymore. So, honestly, there's no other dogs like an Adams in there to really soak it up. You got Fields. And one thing we know about Fields from training camp last year with the Steelers, he'll lock onto that wide receiver. Things got different in season. But things got different in season. You look at the adjacent values here. A.J. Brown, Devin Achane, Travis Hunter, Joe Burrow. He's very expensive, but could be very fluid if you're interested in him in rookie drafts. I know a lot of people are out on him as well because they don't like Fields. And then there's also a segment where people do like Fields. That's why I asked that question. But you look at the depth chart here. Where's the ball going to go? I think they're going to run it a lot. I think they're going to use this stable of running backs. They're going to pound it a lot. But you look at that depth chart down there. It looks favorable when it comes to target share. But it might ramp down the passing attempts. It wasn't high to begin with. But still, Garrett Wilson should have good target share. Hopefully, he gets more targets deeper downfield. That could potentially happen. I do expect the run game to be pretty heavy in this offense. Zay Flowers is another guy we want to look at today. Wide receiver 21. I don't have any motives with these players. I just look at the list and see who's enticing to me. I haven't talked about Zay Flowers, I feel like, for months. Even though it's probably every day. 3 wide receiver 1 games. 3 wide receiver 2 games. He had that hot moment in the season from weeks 2 to 9 where a lot of people were very high on him with the production. Tapered off. But honestly, not many bottom out games, like 5 or 6 of them. But even when we're a wide receiver 3, we're still hitting double-digit production. That's good. A steady floor, but we can also bottom out. 6.9 targets per game. Solid on the targets. 25.7% target share. 8 out of 10. So when you look back at that chart, you can definitely see why the boom performances was there. But also the 8 outs at 10, that's just good enough. So also you can still have some volatile production at 25% target share with the amount of targets per game. But we're in on 90% of the routes. We're always going to be out there. And they didn't draft anybody that's going to take Zay Flowers' routes away. They're going to be getting opportunity. And the thing that people were low on Zay Flowers last year was the 8-out was very low. I see his 8-out probably averaging out to this range, the 10-ish range. Maybe on a high year, maybe 11, 12. I say it's going to average out to this range. I say target share, just looking at what's on the roster, should be around this range. And he should be very similar when it comes to week-to-week production. Probably going to give you 3 to 5 wide receiver 1 weeks a year with a couple wide receiver 2 games. Wide receiver 3 games are okay with a few downers, like 3 to 5 downers. And I think that's easy to project in those terms. 1,000 yards last year, 4 touchdowns. So we can ramp up the touchdowns to maybe 6 to 8. You're probably going to feel that a little bit more in fantasy football. Wide receiver 21, still kind of expensive, but not too crazy. Also, he can be liquid on the market when you're looking at him versus the adjacent players. So with your rookie draft picks, he could be obtained. He could be obtained. Like, say you do not like the wide receivers on the board. The running back pool is dipped a little bit, and you don't want those tiers of what you're looking at in running backs. This could be an option for you. You know what you're going to get. That's the reason for that. Hopkins is there. Bateman is still there. Bateman's the downfield field stretcher of the team when he really shouldn't be. So they play different roles. I look for Flowers stay the same. LeJohntay Wester is a deep flyer I like, but you might be able to get him as a UDFA in a lot of rookie drafts if you like him. But all in all, I look for him just to be steady, kind of palatable in trades more than ADP. I think he'd be cheaper in some leagues via trade, and in other leagues he'd be just right where he is at, kind of in ADP. But a guy, if you don't like what's there to pivot to, Jordan Addison. 3 wide receiver 1 games, 3 wide receiver 2 games, 6.7 targets. We do have some low games in there. Wide receiver 22, so right there in Zay Flowers territory. So maybe you can't get him, you go after Addison or whatever if you're looking for veteran wide receivers while you're in draft. We do have J.J. McCarthy. Looks like he's going to be healthy, good to go, which he should be due to the timestamps of when the injury happens and up till the start of the season. He's the guy, too. They didn't bring in other quarterbacks or anything like this. And they also said via Schefter that he was the guy all along throughout the offseason, which we kind of figured that out. 21% target share, but an 8 out of 11.4. So, again, those spike weeks can be elevated with that 8 out. It's a little bit higher than Zay Flowers, which is something you want to see. The target shares dipped a little bit more, but you have Justin Jefferson. What do you expect? Out there on 92% of the routes. We're always going to be out there. As long as we're healthy, we're going to be out there. We're going to be out there running routes. 875 yards, 9 touchdowns on the season. All in all, good production. Over 100 targets on the year. Jordan Addison is going to get work. He's liquid enough that he's obtainable with your picks. If you don't like what's on the board, that's really with what you want to do. Just shoot your shot, see what happens. You're looking at the depth chart here. It should be same old, but maybe better. Maybe better. Maybe JJ lights it up a little bit better. Maybe he targets Addison a little bit more. Maybe he does. Maybe he's more efficient in those regards. Maybe he goes through his progressions a little quicker and gets to Addison. Maybe that happens. Maybe he locks on to Justin Jefferson enough, but still just goes straight to Addison. Maybe he does that. Maybe that happens. Maybe Addison takes a step forward here this season. That could potentially happen. They're practicing right now. We went over the practice clips of McCarthy. He's looking good. He's looking confident. We got some mobility. And if you need to get out of that late first, mid first, early, whatever it is, it really depends on what's on the board, how that pick's being valued. That's how it is right now versus the value your league sets, honestly. Like, I can just throw a pick out there and you say, yeah, that's it. That's not it. That's not real life. So really just look what's on the board. If you don't like it, you like Addison, you like Flowers, you like somebody in that range, maybe if it's a running back, maybe that's your move. Chase Brown, I want to talk about him. Drafted a running back, drafted Taj Brooks. I like Taj Brooks as a flyer. I think he fits well in this offense. RB15, you see the chart shoot up a little bit. Like, hey, they did not spend a day 2 pick on a running back or early day 3 pick. We feel safe here. 16.1 points per game, 4.1 targets per game. He's very electric, very productive. Chase Brown feels very safe going into the 2025 season. Got a lot of opportunity, 10th among running backs in those regards, 6th in targets. So we're getting work in the pass game, the run game. Very efficient, 19th in yards created, 41 yards created per touch. Evaded tackles, 10th among running backs. Chase Brown, 990 yards, 7 touchdowns. Again, we had kind of like a slower start due to them trying to figure out who's the running back, plus injuries in there and all that stuff. Chase Brown evidently became the guy, but we're looking at this backfield. Remember, they brought in Samaje Perine. Zach Moss is still there, and Taj Brooks was drafted. So they're looking to have somebody with him. Not just behind him, but with him. So maybe Perine ends up being a meat shield back. Or Moss ends up the meat shield. Or maybe Taj Brooks works his way up the depth chart and he finishes the year as the meat shield back. Or if there's injuries, Taj Brooks gets his opportunity. Chase Brown is valued in a light where you can pivot to him if you need to. Where if you don't like what's on the board, maybe you can pivot to him. You know we're playing running backs in 1-year samples, 2-year samples. And the Dynasty game with running backs, and pretty much in general now, is getting very redrafty. That could be an option for you when we're looking at that. Jaden Reed. Just want to look at him. They drafted a first-round wide receiver. What's the market doing? They're dropping him a bit. Do you like Jaden Reed? Do you like him? Now, I'm just going over the players that I haven't talked about recently and guys that I'm interested in for the day. 11.7 points per game, just 2 wide receiver 1 weeks. They're boom weeks. And like I said, and I keep saying when I talk about Goldie, is they got the carousel effect. And if you don't follow me in season, when I'm helping you set lineups, I go over every single matchup. And I go really deep on the Monday night matchup, the Thursday night matchup, and if there's other night matchups that are like 1 or 2 games, I go really deep on those, going over the targets, the air yards, the volume, the potential point totals of the games to help predict how they're going to score in this 1 game sample. The one thing I can say about the Packers, they got a carousel effect. They're usually operating with 3 wide receivers on the field, and Love's a good point guard. He pushes it around. He doesn't really play favorites. He gets the ball out. He gets it out there. Anybody on the field that Sunday can get it. Reed's one of those. Usually the guy who's consistent getting targets is the one that's going to do well. One thing you'll notice here, his down games ain't that horrible, but he does have some bad downers like 6, 7, 3, 5, 7, 1, maybe that 9.8, but also 13, 14, 10, 11, 11, where he's not killing you, but still not good enough. Blew up those early parts of the season, 16.2% target share, 8 out of 9.1. I look for Golden to take the deep shots. I look for them to use them that way, and Christian Watson to get zapped completely. Wicks got a lot of targets. We had some injuries baked into these wide receivers, if you can remember that right. We also had Romeo Doubs getting about 20% target share. It's a carousel effect. I mean, think about it. Look at the target share. 16, 16, 20, 15, 13. You're going to put Golden there, and he's going to match right into that. And then eventually he's going to assert above that. That's what I'm seeing. Because honestly, with the back end of the carousel effect, this wide receiver depth chart, he's going to trump them pretty quick. And he's going to work his way up. And that's it. That's it. He could end up being the guy getting the 20+% target share out of this and being the most effective. That could potentially happen. We also have the upside in his offense where if it stays put and Love doesn't care and he just keeps distributing, where it just gets spread around. But Goldie's getting a lot of upside with it due to the speed and deep shots or the ability to get the yards after the catch, depending on how he's been implemented. But I think Reed's going to be okay. I think he's going to be okay, but he's also somebody you shouldn't highly covet. Shouldn't highly covet him either. I mean, he's not really effective wide receiver 1 weeks too many times out of the year where you're getting 5, 6, 7 out of them, along with a few wide receiver 2 games or anything like that, or a bunch of wide receiver 2 games, sprinkling them with some wide receiver 1 weeks. You're not getting that. You may not get that. You may get some good spike weeks. You may get a good run of games with how he's been involved in the offense. Maybe the touchdowns could go up, but it's also being spread around pretty good among these wide receivers. 5, 6, 4, 7. I get it. I got tight ends in there, but still, that's how we're seeing the passing game work. It's a carousel effect. Reed's going to be using the carousel effect, but you got to use it wisely in season. As a chip, he could be a pivot. You can pivot to him if you want something cheap that's a veteran that you want to go to. Again, you're looking at this offense. Reed, Golden, Doubs. You got Savion Williams there. He could be mixed into the carousel effect later on in. Watson's not for long. Wicks. Again, Reed's going to get his. He's going to get some opportunity. But again, it's going to be the carousel effect. It's going to be up and down. I think dropping him a little bit in the rankings fine. I'm not really overly reactive. Keon Coleman. We got a little bump up. 8.6 points per game. 4.4 targets per game. Bills are very funny in the passing attack, how they're building things. Keon Coleman's almost like the same thing going into year 1 when you're looking at that. 15.5% target share with an 8 out of 15.2. That sounds like we could potentially, as we develop, and if I'm not really calling shots, if we develop to a certain point, you could get Gabe Davis-esque production, Will Fuller-esque production, like a handful of boom weeks and a handful of nothing. Really, that's what that's saying. That could happen. We got to step it up when it comes to target share. That's the main thing. Khalil Shakur is doing a good job with a 23% target share. It's hard to knock him. He's hard to surpass. He's good, technical, nuanced. Keon Coleman, though, we're going into year 2. We got to take a step up. There's some games where, like, we didn't know if he was even running route. He'd get out of the first half, only like 1 or 2 routes ran. And adjacent players, he's a guy that you could pivot to, and you might be able to catch him on the cheap if you like this offense. They got Joshua Palmer there now that he could take some of the deep balls away. That is something that could happen, but it's not like you got Amari Cooper to worry about. And you also got Mack there last year that you got to worry about as well. That being said, he needs to take a step forward. If he takes a step forward, I'm saying even like 5 to 10% better compared to last year, you might get a volatile wide receiver that gives you some boom weeks, like 3 to 5, and then a bunch of nothing, which you may hate if you have to set lineups. You may be cussing me out because you'll be scoring on your bench. Well, at least I gave you the real truth there. But it could also be like a lot last year, and this offense is just pushing it. Khalil Shakur, the run game, Joshua Palmer just steps up. Maybe that happens. All in all, he's in a price where if you want to gamble, you could definitely do that, especially with how things are being very fluid in rookie drafts right now. Tyler Lockett, honestly, I just want to take a look. I just want to take a look under the hood with you guys. 7.1 points per game, 3 wide receiver 2 weeks. Start of season was pretty good, but then JSN emerged. But we're also looking at targets. Starting off the season was pretty good. 124 in the rankings there. Targets, everything is going to be different, new team, but we can get a deep ADOT, 10.6, which could be pretty good in this offense. Calvin Ridley always gets a good ADOT and gets a good target share. Could be different with a rookie quarterback, so everything could be totally different. This team likes to have veteran wide receivers. They had Tyler Boyd, Ridley on the roster last year. They like to have veteran wide receivers. Now we got Van Jefferson, Lockett, and Ridley. Interesting dynamo wide receivers. Alec Amander drafted in the 4th round. Treylon Burks as the gatekeeper wide receiver on the depth chart. So if anybody wants to step it up and be productive or be relevant on this depth chart, they got to get past him. Tyler Lockett, Van Jefferson, Calvin Ridley. Lockett could be getting some deep balls. He could be getting some fluid opportunity. Cam Ward plays off script. Lockett could be a nice volatile play. He could be like a cheaper version if you don't want to pay for Keon Coleman. If you want to chase some boom weeks out of the year, maybe it gets you 2, 3, like you did in Seattle. Maybe. I'm not really going to bet on it, but at that price, you're not betting. The market is saying we're interested in. You look at this depth chart, and we looked at it before. We were looking at Treylon Burks. We were looking at the other wide receivers. Like, something's got to give here. And maybe it's Tyler Lockett, and maybe he gets some opportunities to be productive to a degree. Maybe. But he's shooting up. The market's looking at him. What I see is Calvin Ridley getting opportunities. Calvin Ridley looking good in camp. Tyler Lockett, if he's out there and if he's healthy most of the year, he's going to get opportunities to get some deep shots. Ward plays off script. He'll push it. That's the thing about that. Ward is not a Bo Nix. He'll push it. He's got a gunslinger mentality. Lockett gets open. He gets open downfield. Could be a good veteran downfield. Would you rely on him in Dynasty? What does the chart below me say? No. Would you rely on him as an upside play for a lineup week to week in different formats and maybe Dynasty depending on how you're built? Maybe depending on how you're built. Would you look at him as an asset for Dynasty? Hell no. Asset as in a guy on your team that could gain value. He's never going to gain much value. He's never going to gain much value unless he really somehow clicks with Cam Ward. But with the age there, it's just not happening. There's a stopgap there, and it's probably not much higher. That being said, the potential outlook of having an ADOT in double digits, being out on the field with a rookie quarterback that will go YOLO with it a little bit, but yet still be composed and has a good mental processor. You might have some week-to-week volatility here that might really beat out that price tag, but nothing to chase. You really shouldn't be chasing hardly anybody to talk about here because I'm really trying to find you deep flyers, but hopefully you understand that. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. You laugh because I had to really bring that segment out, but there's a lot of people that don't understand that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear about that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.